Welcome back for part 2 of episode whatever this is of the Smart Nonsense podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. I swear to God, if someone looks at me while I do this podcast one more time, I'm going to freak out.
What do you mean looks at you? In your house?
I'm getting sneaky eyes slipping in through the doorway, and I don't like it.
I don't like sneaky eyes.
Henry
Really quick,
like
you're Dylan, I'm Henry. Speaking of sneaky eyes, I was camping this weekend, and we hung our food in the trees because there's bears, but we didn't have good twine and or good bear bags. 10 minutes into falling asleep, it's pitch black, and we hear a thud. And there's just, first of all, Athena, she says, grab a knife. I'm like, I'm going to grab a flashlight. I think that's a better tool to bring to this battle. We can use our words here. I take my headlamp and I look outside, and there's these just the fattest raccoon you've ever seen in the tree, like sitting in the crotch of the tree, reaching into our bag of food. It took all the trail mix. It took, except the raisins. And I woke up about 6 hours later, and I was going to the bathroom, and I saw its eyes just eating our tortillas in the forest.
Oh, so you didn't do it?
Yep.
You just shined the light and hoped it'd run away?
It's a longer story. The food was a lost cause. We thought it was all gone. We didn't have any more twine. If I went and rescued the food and scared off the raccoon, we couldn't again tie it up. So we were like, screw it, let's just go to sleep.
So you were just scavenging for berries as this fat raccoon just sat.
No, so we woke up the next day. It had only eaten our trail mix.
So whatever this raccoon was just touching all your food, and you're like, if we heat it up, maybe
it touched everything. It touched everything. The marshmallows we had, it touched those. It fondled my coffee. Like, it was just. So that's how we got here.
So if you get rabies mid podcast, I'll know if you start foaming and then walking around the room.
Exactly.
It's probably.
That was the raccoon in the tree.
Well, I'm glad we confirmed the nonsense part of this podcast.
Yeah, right.
So we're talking again about the Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich book. Completely changed our lives, just like that raccoon in the tree. And we first covered in part 1, in case you didn't listen, the overview of why it's so awesome, why it's changed our lives, just the highlights that we wanted to discuss. But now we get into the nitty gritty, how we implement it on the day-to-day level. Belky's still implementing it right now. I have it pretty much up and running in the background. But Belky, tell me about overall, like, we start with credit cards and then we start hammering home some of these different accounts. But where do you want to start?
I have barely just begun is where I need to start. And it's that in itself is a little bit scary. But credit cards are something I've been doing for a long time. I was lucky. My parents, long before I could, opened a credit card in my name to use for emergencies with them. The beautiful thing was they were paying that credit card off. So I had a credit history going back to the day I was born, which is really, really lucky. But then in college, I mean, it wasn't great. This is a card that had $20 spent on it over 10 years, right? So it's it at least had a history, but in terms of a good credit score, it didn't exist. So I wanted to really get the Chase Sapphire Reserve in college because I was doing a lot of travel and I couldn't. I found a different card. But today I can finally say I'm a Chase Sapphire Reserve card holder. I think it is the best card the world has ever seen. It does cost $550 a year. And I can't justify paying that this year because it's all travel benefits. So what I really should do in Ramit, the word escaped me, in Ramit fashion, there we go, is I should call up the bank and ask them to waive that fee for this year. And I'm actually going to put that on my to-do list right now. Remember, these banks and credit unions have so much money, and it costs them so much money to acquire me and you as customers that they can afford. I don't know if this will work. It's an expensive card, but they can probably afford to waive that overdraft fee or that, lower your APR or waive your annual fee for the year. I'm going to try and do it. I can report back, but let's see if I can convince them to give me $550 back.
Yeah. That's one of the big, there's a lot there. That's one of the big concepts in the book is you can renegotiate this stuff. Don't take any list price for or charge that you get slapped as something that's going to be constant. Like you can just go and call them and renegotiate things. I'm too lazy to do that. Like even I booked a fake hotel in Florence once, forgot to charge it back. It was like $250 and we ended up sleeping in a field. Ridiculous story, but I was just too lazy to call them and charge it back.
But
And
see, that's real money. That's why I don't get why you didn't. And your bank also told you like, yeah, you would have won this immediately. And first of all, I've never lost. I do it with discretion, but I've never lost a chargeback case. Credit cards are. I'm also convinced, even when it's not legitimate or justifiable, they pay the merchant and give me the credit because again, they want to keep me on board.
right.
I don't understand why you didn't fight that battle. It's so easy.
Assuming people know what chargebacks are, it's basically your insurance company will insure any purchases you make.
Insurance company.
Sorry, whatever. Your credit card company will insure you against scam purchases and stuff. And basically, what happened to me? So, charge stuff back, and then I'm just too lazy. Like whatever, it was a cost. But if you have a good credit card, it works well. I think that's the one area that I'd like to improve in my system because I just have these little dink donk credit cards, and I mean, I got a decent system, but it's not optimized. I use Amazon Prime, 5% back on all those purchases. Cash back. I don't like dealing with all the headache of figuring out travel rewards. It just confuses me. It's too much. So, whatever. I buy almost everything on Amazon. It works out. I just sent over like $200 to my bank account from Amazon. I think that's dope. So that's what I do to keep it simple. But ideally, if I had a good credit score, if my parents were awesome from birth and started that, then sure, I could get what Belkey has with the Sapphire Reserve. But yeah, I started at like 18 with credit cards, and what Ramit recommended or something. Actually, Stick Figure Finances was a stupid blog I put up, but I got super into this world. I created a credit card just to pay off my Spotify because I knew that Spotify is something I'd have forever because I like listening to music. And so each month, I forgot about this honestly till doing research for this, but it just pays off $10 automatically every single month. And the utilization rate, which is a large factor, like I have $2,000 with that credit card I can spend a month, but I only spend 10. So it looks really good. And that's why my credit score is 760 right now, which is pretty good.
I need to get better about that because I have a business credit card that I do all my kind of arbitrage stuff on. And it's got like $30,000 line of credit. And I often use a good chunk of that. And all I need to do is call them up and tell them I need a credit increase. And granted, the numbers work out and they'll have to do a hard pull, but I need to get that utilization ratio down. I think that's why my credit score hasn't gotten better in the last year or two. It's also somewhere around 760, but I think it could be better.
I don't know if you pay everything off in full, but first things first with the credit cards, always pay that shit off in full because it's like 20% APR, which is a ridiculous amount.
I don't think people our age understand how credit cards work. And I was convinced talking to people, even in university, like people just don't understand how credit card works. You can't just pay $35 a month and like get to use the money for free. That's just not how it works.
That's why it's one of the first chapters where me talks about it's the biggest scam ever. Literally, credit card companies like Amex or Visa. This is actually from Warren Buffett. I read he's like, these companies are too rich. They don't know what to do with their money. They're like, we have too much money. There's no other investments out there that will get us the same return. And it's just from people that don't understand how credit cards work and they just take advantage of them. Meanwhile, people like Belkey and I, we can travel and do all these awesome experiences on the dime of the credit card companies because they're so rich.
Right.
So what I was going to say about your scenario is if you pay off your balance before the due date, so say the due date's like whatever, tomorrow or 2 days from now, if you pay it off tomorrow, then your utilization rate will be like 0%.
Right.
Because you paid it all off. So as long as you pay it off before the automatic billing date, then, then you're safe.
So I thought it was what's outstanding too.
At the point when they measure it that month.
Okay.
So if you pay it off
Oh,
before that point in the month, then it doesn't impact your utilization rate.
then
These
I'm
are
probably
nitty gritty
okay.
details. Don't worry about this, people. Just set it up with your checking account, and maybe we'll get into details, but you want it to auto pay the full balance every single month. And I've never really checked my credit card stuff just to
Yeah,
make
I
sure.
see. I like that control, and Ramit's like, stop being stupid. I don't automate my credit card payments, but I have them as dates in my calendar. Like I have one due tomorrow, and it comes up as a notification. I do want. I've in 5 years of paying off these credit cards, I've never had an issue where like the money was. I have no reason to not be automating that payment. I can still go in and review the statement 5-7 days before, but I need to automate it. It's like another 5 minute thing that happens 4 times a month that I can cut down on.
I don't know how. Wow, that drives me crazy. I can't do that. I know I'd miss a payment and then it really screws your credit score. Maybe you're on top of it with your calendar. I know you are. But for most people, just automate it. And then
And this is
sometimes,
what's important is it just came to mind. I think Ramit says it. If you can't beat them, i.e., the credit card companies, because you can't, join them, right? I think until you stop like succumbing to all their scare tactics and fees and all that crap, if you just learn how the systems work, Ramit talks a lot about it in this book, way more than we ever could. You can really use it to your advantage. I'd say 90 to 95% of my travel is free. And if it's not free, it's earning a ridiculous amount of rewards. You just got to make sure you're not spending more than you have.
and we get to stay in all these dope airline, what do you call those? Like
Les
lounges?
Lizards.
Yeah. Well, you get all these perks. Like we always go to these awesome lounges and we can eat free food and whatever. Almost missed our flight in Germany and
Yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, it's dope. Basically, don't get crazy. Again, you're gonna have to pay this money off, pay it off in full when that comes, but set it up so it's automatic. And this kind of trickles into the whole system in general. Like when you get money from wherever that source is, an employer, I don't know, your clients, whatever it is, it should all come into, I guess it depends, but basically,
Yeah, let's talk about banks.
yeah.
What's your pause?
Well, because sometimes when you have money from an employer, you tell them to just send 5% straight to the 401k.
Right. See, I don't
So,
get paychecks. This is part of the problem.
yeah.
This makes this very, because Ramit talks about like just how to allocate percentage wise your costs out of your paycheck and where to push money around. I have to spend way more thought because money just kind of shows up when it's around. I don't, pay myself out properly. So that's very difficult.
We
What do you,
call when someone's texting and trying to talk at the same time, that's called Gen Z. And Belky's,
I'm flipping through the book. You think I'm on our podcast
I don't know.
texting?
I've been very disappointed
Me.
with you over the last 72 hours, so it wouldn't
This is
surprise
just
me.
another excuse for people to tune into these videos. I think they're going to be on YouTube now. Dylan does all the work, but I'm sitting here flipping through this excellent book called I Will Teach
Maybe
You to
if
Be
you
Rich.
took 2 seconds to post
You know
it.
what? I'm looking for the infographic that you're trying to recollect.
I swear to God, you say recollect.
He hates that word.
Remember.
It's a flow chart about where to push money around when it comes in as salary, and I can't find it, and that's okay.
Well, I bookmarked it, so I'll find it. So here's how it goes. Basically, yeah, if you work for someone, they're going to auto send your 401k, max that out. But everything from there goes into one checking account. And that's like your master inbox. That's where everything comes in. And then you start shipping stuff out from that one central location.
What's your
So-
central bank, central checking?
A lot of people, and what I had was
And
Santander.
wait, really quick, what is your account number and social security?
Yeah, I'll post screenshots of everything inside my bank accounts on smartnonsense.com. But I used to have Santander, and then I got really fed up because I studied abroad, and I'd go to these Santander banks and try and take out money. But it's like, no, this is Santander Latin America. We're going to charge you 5% on every withdrawal. And I'm like, what the? So they're just trying to screw everybody. And then Ramit comes in and he's like, dude, all you got to do, open up a little Charles Schwab, and then bing, bang, boom. You need money from an ATM overseas, they'll reimburse any fees. You need anything in the world, like it's just the perfect bank account, no fees, nothing ever. It's just money there. It's easy to send it into, say, a retirement fund within Charles Schwab. It's just a fantastic fund. And I don't think you've opened that one yet. Have you, Belkin?
Yeah, I'm on. So I got a high yield checking, and it gets paired with a brokerage account. No fees, no minimums. The customer service has been fantastic. Schwab's not going anywhere. I do a lot of travel, and this has been a big point of contention between you and I is ATM fees. I'm like, well, I'll just take out 200 USD and I'll eat the $5 fee. It's fine. And then you're just, gallivanting around worldwide, no ATM fees. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So I haven't yet figured out what my master account is because I'm having an issue. I do so much business in cash. I need local branches, but I'm really close to going all in on Schwab's checking.
Right. The one downside is Schwab doesn't have in-person local banks. So if you
No
need to
cash
deposit
deposits.
cash, like if you're a drug dealer or something, it's probably not the best bank account, or you're doing whatever sketchy stuff Belky does with eBay. But for
I got
95,
suspended yesterday. I'm so mad. I got suspended. This has happened so many times. eBay, what the heck? I've made you so much money. Stop. Sorry.
All right,
So I'm
yeah,
going to
don't
call
listen
him
to
up
Belky.
and I'm going to use some of Ramit's scripts, and I got to convince him otherwise. But
Right.
yeah.
So Schwab, if you're listening to this right now and you have some Santander, Bank of America, forget that bank. You want Charles Schwab. That's your checking account. That's just online, central, customer service is great. No fees, nothing. I mean, I was fed up in Argentina because I'd take out money every week because they use cash for everything. So I probably spent $200 just in fees
Another
over
quick note.
5 months.
Ramit said he had a friend who's in New York for the summer, called up big bank, something like Bank of America, and was like, hey, there's no Bank of Americas in New York. This isn't true, but they are mostly Chase in New York. And just said like, hey, can you waive the ATM fees for the summer? And you're like, yeah, sure, no problem. You probably could have done that in Latin America in hindsight. So just use your leverage.
Again, I'm
Well,
lazy. I'm lazy.
yeah.
So just take the lazy approach. You don't have to call anyone ever because they're awesome from the start. So Charles Schwab, that's where all your money comes in. Checking account, that's where you're going to do the daily, like day-to-day transactions. Then you want to have from there your savings account. So savings is for anything that you're not going to spend in like 1 to 6 months, unless you're Henry's uncle and has $200,000 in there or whatever.
My grandpa.
Grandpa,
So
sorry.
sad.
I'm such a bad listener right now. But
You're excited. It's okay.
way too excited. So your savings account, that's with, like, I have a savings account right now for one student loans. So I wanted to save a bunch there to pay that down. So I just save it and whatever. Like, we don't have to pay student loans right now because of the coronavirus. So I'm just saving it all there. I have it for taxes too because we're self-employed. So I want to just never see that money. And that's what I say about like forgetting about that account is it just automatically withdraws from my savings, from my checking, in Schwab to my savings. So every week it'll withdraw like $400 just for my taxes and then an extra $100 for any sort of student loan payments and stuff like that.
Was it difficult for you? Ramit talks about how it could be a big headache, getting all these dates to line up in terms of billing cycles, transfer cycles. That's kind of what I'm battling with right now.
I think at one point I thought about it all, but my solution to the whole figuring out like when stuff should be transferring was just to build up a little buffer. And this is what he talks about with self-employed people like you and I, is just have like 3 months worth of cash so that any sort of like mistiming, it's not an issue because you have so much in the bank.
That's what I have to figure out. Really, it's difficult in my mind, but yeah, if you have this irregular income, you can kind of trick the system into being like a very regular monthly or bi-weekly income by creating this buffer of like 3 months, so that it's just kind of paying out of this little pile of cash, and then as money comes in irregularly, it's It's all there. So that's what I'm figuring out.
Yeah, I picture it as the same thing with these podcasts. We want to have a little buffer so that if there's any sort of short run problems, then we have enough in the bank where we can just throw out episodes still. Like Henry goes and hangs out with raccoons in the forest. So yeah, basically everything comes into the checking, and then part of it will get siphoned immediately and automatically every single week for me into my savings accounts. And other people, if you're older, maybe you want to buy a home, you can have a savings account for your mortgage, or for down payment, or weddings, whatever. People undersave for weddings like crazy. There's just so much there, and again, that's for 1 month on. But your checking account, that's your day-to-day transactions.
And Ramit proposes, which I'm going to get on, is Capital One 360. I know right now they're offering like 1.2% APY. Really doesn't matter much. But the beauty of Capital One 360 is you can create those sub-savings accounts. So you can have a sub-savings account within the savings account for wedding, for house down payment, for vacation, for shopping spree, whatever you want. I think that's really cool. So that's on my to-do list in the next few days.
Right. Yeah. They were even giving me like $25 to open up new sub accounts.
Whoa.
And so I was just opening up a bunch like crazy.
Was there a limit?
No, I don't know. I just opened like 5 of them. So I think they gave me like $100 for free, or $125. But
and now you're paying $12 a month on each of them.
What?
Moving on.
All right. So you have your checking, you have your savings.
I think that's it for banks. Yeah. Sorry.
And so, yeah, all you have to do is open up Schwab and then open up Capital One 360. Just keep it simple. Those two are awesome. That's what they recommend in the book. The third area, unless you have something to...
I was just going to say, if cash is an issue, which is what I'm battling right now, he recommends like finding a local bank that can waive fees, waive limits, get you free checks. So that's a solution if you can't go all online, but most people can.
Right.
Who uses
for the
cash
most part,
anymore?
there's no reason to. It's literally, unless you're putting money in the bank, you don't need it. Like I'm only withdrawing really, because everything's direct deposit with any sort of funds that I get. So there we got the savings, we got the checking handled. Now it's just a matter of what do we do for the investing? Again, where all the money comes in.
That and conscious spending. What do you want to talk about?
Let's cover just while we're with accounts, what to do with investing, and then conscious spending. And conscious spending is related to checking, I guess.
Give us your ultimate lazy view of investing.
We're going to have someone else on the podcast this week, by the way, who will go maybe more in depth on this argument.
Yeah.
But
let's bring the head-to-head on here.
That'd be dangerous. So my view, again, is the lazy approach. What is the easiest way for me to make a lot of money in the long term? And what I found is these target date funds is the best way. And so just breaking down what that actually means. Target date is like, all right, hey, you're saving for retirement in around 2060. Well, we're going to automatically manage your money. And it's not really much management at all. Just buy a couple index funds for you, international, domestic, and then some bonds as you get older. Like, you want to have more stocks now when you're young and can absorb the risk with the market, but really there's no risk in the long run. So it'll change your allocation over time to more bonds, fewer
automatically, stocks. Right?
Automatic. So it's basically I automatically buy like $100 of it a week and just whatever, forget about it. And I'll look in my Charles Schwab, because I bought a Schwab target date fund. I'll just look every week and I'm like, oh shit. All right.
And this is passive management. This is letting computers, which run index funds, just make picks that follow the market. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's not even picks. It's like, let's take the biggest index funds. And Henry, you were talking about like S&P 500 index fund because it had a little bit lower expense ratio, which is just like what they charge you to manage it, which is fine, but it has a little bit less diversification.
Right.
Versus
so I'm absolutely able to be convinced to get into a target fund. Right now, I'm in a total stock fund. That was just like easy for me to do. And it's okay because I'm 23. That's not a good idea. My approach, what I've chosen to do, is going to take more effort from me each year and every 5 years to kind of shift things around so that when I'm 60, I don't lose all my money in Google stock because whatever. So I'm definitely, after kind of finishing up this book, I wasn't on board with Target Fund before. Now I'm thinking that's the way to go.
It's just you can be one of those people that goes out and, you get your lobster and you get the bib and you want to crack all the claws and everything. I just want the lazy boy lobster. It's going to taste just as good for so much less effort. And yeah, I pay like fraction of
I
a
did the
little bit
math. The
more.
difference between what you're doing, 0 work, and what I would have to do, more asset allocation, is like $15,000 over 45 years. It's
Right. And for not thinking about it at all ever, because everything's automatic, that's worth it to me.
Now compare these to an active style of management, like a mutual fund, which a lot of our parents do. I think index funds came around in the 80s. 401ks are often mutual funds, right? They take 1-ish to 2-ish% to manage those accounts. And what was fascinating in this book is how that 1% to 2% fee compounds over 40 years. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And sometimes it's great. Some funds are, picked really well, but also there's a human there. There's a lot of emotion there. And oftentimes they're not, and they're not always beating the market. It just seemed like a no-brainer to buy into index funds.
Right. And when people say they beat the market, a lot of it, maybe it's true. Like, sure, maybe they beat it and they beat it for a couple of years, but a lot of it, they'll obscure some of these extra costs that they tack on for managing your funds. And plus, there's the survivorship bias of the ones that don't beat it just die off, so you never see them. So
and
you're
they don't
only
have to report those.
Right. So just like don't get crazy. Don't think you're smarter than Warren Buffett and the entire world that's trying to make money. Like literally the smartest people in the world are trying to do this. So just do the lazy approach. You're gonna get historically 11%, 8% after inflation, if you consider that. You're gonna make good money. So just take the lazy approach, automate it.
You usually say gonna, and you just said you're gonna. So I'm happy.
I don't even know if that's a Rhode Island thing or what, but
what about dollar cost averaging? I think a lot of people get caught up in this. Basically, is it better to you found $5,000? Is it better to put that in as a lump sum into a Roth IRA, or actually this isn't a good example because lump sum 2/3 of the time Ramit found is better. But basically, can you walk us through what dollar cost averaging is and why automation plays into the beauty of dollar cost averaging? Or am I putting you on the spot?
no, I got this. So people try and time the market.
I got this.
Come on. So people try and time the market. They're like, right now we have whatever the market's really low because of this whole quarantine situation. Businesses are hurt. Like right now is the perfect time to buy. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. Most people can't predict the future. So I would rather, instead of like trying to time it and be like, right now is the best time to buy or right now is a bad time, I'll wait a little bit. I'll just put a little bit in every single week. And that it just works very well with automations. It's just $100 a week or whatever number you want to use. And it transfers from my Schwab checking straight into my Schwab Roth IRA fund because I don't have a 401k. But then it just automatically buys each week.
And in some, 1 week you buy, you're probably buying at a high. The next week you're buying at market or whatever. The third week you're getting a great sale, things are down. The dollar cost average is basically like you're just doing as well as the market by putting in money every week. Stop trying to predict the future. You can't do it.
Right. And we're getting close to time. So there's more I want to talk about there, but we'll forget it. I know if you're listening this far, you're probably into this stuff. Some people might hate it, but this is so important.
Deep. This has been deep. It sounds boring. It's so important.
The book's probably even more entertaining than us. Like it's such a good. It got me so jazzed up when I first heard it, and just all the richness that it unlocked. But this, so
the richness I unlocked. Sorry.
All right. Conscious spending.
Things have been better. The last episode and this one. Things have been better. Wrap it up. What do you got?
I thought you wanted to talk about conscious spending real quick.
Oh, yeah. I do. What about it?
All right. What the last topic that Ramit talked about in depth in the book was conscious spending, and a lot of people try and budget. They're like, "Hey, I'm going to cut costs and not drink coffees, even though I love them every morning." But he's like, "No, just figure out what are the key areas. Like, what do you love? Like the maybe handful of things that you love. Say 3 things. Buy like splurge on those, and then cut costs like a mofo on everything else." And I don't know how well I abide to this. I kind of have some rules, but it makes budgeting simple.
He doesn't even want to use budgeting because it's just like nobody sticks to it. It's like being on a diet. You stick to it for a week or 2 weeks. It's not fun. It's not sexy. Nobody does it. But this idea of conscious spending, I kind of like you, I do that, right? Like I prioritize travel and I prioritize things like making videos, having my studio, those costs, which is why I'm at home. I don't want to pay for rent. I'm lucky I don't have to. But that's just in my head. I still need to like put down in ink what are my areas of conscious spending. You know, like activities, yes. Friends, relationships, yes. But like buying coffee for me, no. No, $4 a cup of coffee, no.
What I like is with decision fatigue, if you ever get into this stuff, like you only get so many decisions. Like don't waste it on stupid, like, should I buy this coffee or not? You just have these set rules. And then every time a decision comes up, you just, oh, is my rule, I love coffee or I hate, like it doesn't really matter to me. If it doesn't matter, just get a water. So I kind of have these. I don't know if I'm the best at it, but in terms of experiences, I'll spend like crazy on those. Like you guys know, I'll go on any vacation whenever.
And Ramit says too, like that is the best investment you can make. His experiences, travel, memories, time with people that aren't going to be around forever. I'm with you. I'll spend all day long on that. I'll go into debt over that kind of stuff.
Right. So experiences, those are awesome. Same thing, buying my own time back because you only get so much time. Like I'll spend a good amount of money just to not have to do stuff and be lazy or like do what I want. And then last thing is just bettering myself. So books that we talk about or whatever. Say I'm buying a mic, like I want to improve the podcast, etc. Those things I tend to splurge on. But everything else, again, Henry and I are both living at home. We cut costs there. I don't have a car, cut costs there. There are just so many areas that we just don't have to worry about because we know what we really care about.
Yeah, I still want to put it on paper, but like he says, even, okay, let's say you do all those rungs of the ladder that we talked about last episode. If you still have money left over, invest in yourself, start a business, read, learn, go to night school. What? What's your problem? You will not get a better return.
All right.
What okay. Topic?
On you will not get a better return. Some people might be saying like, oh, Dylan, Henry, why are you investing in the stock market when you'll get a higher return investing in yourselves in the podcast, etc.? That's fair.
I don't have a good answer for that.
Here's my good answer for
hedging.
That. You want to build the good investing habits. So even if it's $10 a week that you're putting into the stock market or what you're putting into these target date funds, do it. Just get the automations in action and then you can ramp up the scale once you start making more money. But just do the minimum amount where it still gets done and then you can focus the rest of your money on your own endeavors.
Let's end there because I think that's kind of where we're both at. Me, certainly, like I don't make a ton of money. However, I want to automate these things, set them up so that as I hopefully predict, things scale in my own life and income scales in my own life, I won't have to think about it. The systems are there. They're ready to accept whatever. And then I can just keep creating and doing all the things that don't take this just ridiculous cognitive load to do every single day.
Love it. All right. Hopefully you stuck around. If you did, you're going to be rich in 50 years and we'll be hanging out at some golf course somewhere, but Belky doesn't golf.
I don't golf. So let's find a different place.
Tennis court. All right. See y'all. For tomorrow, we have MC on for part 2. So we're going to deep dive on her whole life and why she's in finance instead of making bikinis. See ya.
Later.